My concern is doing away with whiteness. Whiteness is a form of racial oppression, sure. The suggestion is that it is somehow possible to separate whiteness from oppression, and it is not. There can be no white race without the phenomenon of white supremacy. In the same way, if you abolish racial oppression, you do away with whiteness. Treason to whiteness is loyalty to humanity.
Your views are fairly well received in academia.
Yes, they're legitimate, not to say that everyone agrees, but sure. And the task is to bring this minority together in such a way that it makes it impossible for the legacy of whiteness to continue to reproduce itself.
I think there's a resurgence of anti-Semitism because at this point in time, Europe has not yet learned how to be multicultural. And I think we're going to be part of the throes of that transformation, which must take place. Europe is not going to be the monolithic societies that they once were in the last century. Jews are going to be at the center of that. It's a huge transformation for Europe to make. They are now going into a multicultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role.
Millions and millions of Europeans who detest the mass immigration project, which has destroyed so much of our identity. You talk about education. This is, in fact, indoctrination. The gentleman over there said it himself, indoctrination from the cradle to the grave. But it's also something extraordinarily sinister. It's nothing less than an attempt to demonise and ban all indigenous resistance to a project which has already turned our people into minorities in their own homelands. For it to come in particular from members of the Jewish community, since then an unholy alliance of leftists, capitalists and Zionist supremacists has schemed to promote immigration and miscegenation with the deliberate aim of breeding us out of existence in our own homelands.
The coalition has always supported the reality of Australia as a multicultural society. Always have and always will.
И в вашей стране, во всех европейских странах, и в России существует большая проблема, связанная с народонаселением. Демографическая проблема. Рождаемость низкая. Вымирают европейцы, вы понимаете это или нет?
If I were a Jew, I'd be a Zionist. I am a Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist.
In the diary of a foreign minister, Bob Carr details what he sees as some of the biggest problems in Australian politics. He singled out the Israeli lobby, saying its influence on Australian politics has reached an unhealthy level. The strongest criticism of all in the book is aimed at the Melbourne Jewish lobby.
Yeah, I would call it the Israeli lobby. I think that's important. But certainly they enjoyed extraordinary influence. I had to resist it, and my book tells the story of that resistance coming to a climax when there was a dispute on the floor of caucus. It needs to be highlighted because I think it reached a very unhealthy level. Public's right to know how foreign policy is made, how cabinet works, outweighs any other considerations.
The stated objective of this Durban Review Conference is to review countries' progress on racism, discrimination, xenophobia and intolerance to help millions of victims worldwide. Today, after the conference outcome document has been adopted, we ask, did the conference live up to its promise? Did it help millions of victims worldwide?
Your ruling be stopped from continuation of his speech. Thank you.
And stick to the subject under discussion, namely the issues arising from the objectives of the review conference. You may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I shall take into account the objectives of this review conference. Indeed, in my hands, I hold the outcome of this conference. And to the distinguished delegates in this hall, I ask, why does it ignore all of the situations represented by these victims? In a conference that promised to review country performance on racism, why did the conference in fact fail to review a single country that perpetrates racism, discrimination and intolerance? Why did the conference fail to review a single abuser?
I think I do call the Speaker to order, and I'll ask him to use the appropriate language. and we only have a few minutes left, so stick to the points, the objectives of this seminar, of this review conference.
Mr. President, I shall conclude merely with one question. Is not the objective of this conference to help victims? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
It's good to be black. Black is a new white. I'm telling you, black, I mean, how black is this right here? Nice fly, you know? I'm saying, Django Unchained, I play a slave. How black is that? And in the movie, I have the word change. How whack is that? But don't be worried about it, because I get out the chains, I get free, I save my wife, and I kill all the white people in the movie. How great is that?
My grandmother harbors any racial animosity. She doesn't. But she is a typical white person.
Our rage of the white world needed no object, no independent confirmation. It could be switched on and off at our pleasure. That's just how white folks will do it. And yet, even as I imagined myself following Malcolm's call, one line in the book stayed with me. He spoke of a wish he'd once had, the wish that the white blood that ran through him, there by an act of violence, might somehow be expunged.
Because the realities are that, you know, as a black man, you know, Barack can get shot going to the gas station.
The polls are showing your husband is trailing Hillary 46% to 37% in the African American community. Mm-hmm. What's going on here?
First of all, I think that that's not going to hold. I'm completely confident. Black America will wake up.
Your new tax plan is going to tax me more, isn't it?
It's not that I want to punish your success. I just want to make sure that everybody who is behind you, that they've got a chance at success too. I think when you spread the wealth around, it's good for everybody.
Discovered what white politicians had known for a very long time. The race baiting could make up for a host of limitations. A steady attack on the white race, the constant recitation of black people's brutal experience in this country, served as the ballast that could prevent the ideas of personal and communal responsibility from tipping into an ocean of despair. It is this world, a world where cruise ships throw away more food in a day than most residents of Port-au-Prince see in a year, where white folks' greed runs a world in need, apartheid in one hemisphere, apathy in another hemisphere. That's the world on which hope sits.
So what's working fine for them wasn't working for ordinary Americans. And we've learned that clearly. It doesn't work out fine for the country. It's got to change. Now, what we're doing, I want to be clear. We're not trying to push financial reform because we begrudge success that's fairly earned.